This is October 5th, 2018, and we're at the home farmyard of Andy Moran. And Andy, how long have you been living on this particular site?
Well, all my life, basically. I did work out a few years in southern Minnesota, meat cutting, but I always had the urge to come back to the farm.
And so you came back, and you've been here now back how many years?
About 35.
Okay, could you reflect then a little bit how it was before you left, and then what you've done since you came back?
Well, I always had a vision of getting the farm established so it would be a farm where it would sustain a living. And I did work out for about 21 years hauling fuel just to try and get this farm to where it would self-sustain itself. And I'm at that point now where I'm really enjoying it.
What did you have to put together? What elements are here now that make it the way you wanted it?
Well, just a lot of improving of the land. I put in a lot of fences. I put in a paddock system. It's just a lot of, well, you can look, I mean, nothing was here before, but everything you see has been, like this little calving barn here used to be the depot in town. We salvaged all the lumber. A lot of that lumber is over 100 years old, but I mean, every building here, that used to be a dairy barn back there. I made a machinery shed out of it. Made hay sheds out of part of the dairy barn. Got another hay shed up north. And just to be able to store that hay under the roof and have a little extra hay for the following years, it's just been a plus.
This is kind of a Moran place. Is this a section 16 of Louisville Township?
Well, actually, 16 is just a mile north.
North. So this is like
21.
21, section 21, just north of Old Crossing, just north of Hewitt, and the Oxbow. And it's kind of a Moran place, isn't it?
Well, I'm second generation. Well, I'd actually be third generation. My grandpa Kelly he used to have this section plus, or he owned the whole section at one time. And he sold off to one of his sons, another one of the sons, the quarter to the north, and then Dad virtually had the whole section at one time, and then he sold off. He ended up getting MS at a young man when he was young, and I think he would have really expanded if he would have been able to stay healthy. But anyway, Mom sold off, an 80 here to the state, and then she sold off some to, Dad actually sold off some to Eugene Wavra, and that's how he ended up with his 120 over there. And Mom eventually needed, just to make ends meet, she sold some more to the state. But I've been able to buy back. Now I've bought back 120 up there, and that's joined back into the farm now. So there's a little over 300 acres. Pretty near got the half section back. But
how much hay land? Can you talk about the division of the land? Like you got hay land and pasture, and there's woodland and so forth.
Hey. I guess the cattle got too close for him. But I rotate basically corn, wheat, beans, and alfalfa, with the balance being in the pasture of the acres. And I roughly have about 80 to 100 acres of each one. And I spread my manure throughout those acres. Well, right now I busted up part of my pasture and gonna redo some of that. And that's where I'm hauling all my manure to now. And I'll put corn on it for 1 year and chop that for the cows. Virtually kind of self-sustained itself with little input. I mean, it's just getting the manure hauled out onto them acres. But just trying to rotate, and the land is improving with the rotating of the manure all around the farm too.
When somebody says a lot of farmers have to diversify, what does it mean to you that you have diversified?
Well, I mean, you're not putting all your eggs into just cattle, or I guess I feel when I do have extra hay, when I feel I'm to the point where I have enough carryover, I will sell a certain amount of hay, get a little income off of that. If corn gets a little higher, sometimes I won't drop quite as much corn, I'll sell a little corn. I kind of go with whatever the market bears, you know. I sell some soybeans, I sell some wheat.
You were energized to some degree in what you decided to do and then what you've done by the history of your family just being here. Did that motivate you ever, that you say, well, the Morans came here quite some time ago and I'm going to make something out of it if I can, what I think it might be?
Well, I guess I'm motivated too by just maintaining the property for some of the next generation well, we all like to hunt, and that'll be coming up here, but you know, I've got like 3 different food plot areas set up for that. I really enjoy doing that part of it a lot. I mean, I sacrifice a few acres here and there, but
you like to cook and you enjoy a good recipe, and there's a sense of you know, feeling things that are being lived on a daily basis, you know. And where does that come from?
oh, I think it's just growing up here. I mean, I remember being a kid and Mom would say, why don't you get out and go get a rabbit, or go see if you can get a grouse, you know. So we'd take off and walk out in the woods and come back, and she always, you know, was very proud of us if we would bring something home. And it just, you always come back to that, it seems like. You think about that, and you know, that's why I guess I enjoy the hunting part of it, because we get together and we everybody's proud of getting their meat and doing a good job and taking it home, and you know.
Yeah, let's move over then into that wild life, if we can call it that, the woodland, and you didn't mention the hayland either, and some of that, and now Noel Odette is going to join us here, and he grew up not far from here, and maybe he could situate where he grew up, and then talk about the kinds of things you knew, and almost a generation earlier than Andy. So could you say where you grew up and what that was like you were doing, and how you supplemented your daily chores, or what you could make, what the parents made from what they did on the farm and so forth? Just what was it like, what the parents did and what the kids did when you were a kid?
Well, when I started remembering, it was horses. We still, all the trashing machines, the cutting of the alfalfa was with 2 horses and, what was it, a 5 or 6 foot sickle mower that was pulled by the horses. Later on, the tractors had lugs on them instead of rubber tires. Pretty soon the tractors, you know, the old co-op Farmers Union showed up, but that was only a 2-plow tractor, but that was modern technology. And what was it, 1940?
In the 1940s, you were just a young kid. You still had the
4 years old.
You were 4 years old. Were you hauling wood in the house yet to heat the house?
No, I don't know about 4, but it wasn't long afterwards. Yeah, the
Would
house
you talk
was strictly.
about your chores then as a kid, and what were the fun things, and the relationship to the land and the woods?
Well, there was 3 families on the farm: Grandpa and Grandma, and Uncle Lawrence and Noel and his family, and then Louie and Louise, my mom and dad. Well, 3 families. Now, there was a total of 440 acres that was farmed, a lot of pasture. From where Andy Moran lives up here, he's farming some of it now. That's state land, but that was our hay land way back when, come across the Black River. Here again, there was a lot of pasture behind the barn. We made a lot of hay, a lot of corn for silage. The wheat and oats was ground for feed for the pigs. The wheat was basically, and the cattle that got sold was the money crops where we made money. Oh, milk cows, so there was milk and cream. Must have milked 25, 30 cows over winter.
How do you remember that you got into helping them do those chores? When did it start, and what was the usual day like when you were young enough that you had to go to grade school yet in high school? How'd you put all that together?
Well, we got grade school. We didn't do much of the farming, but later on, I mean, we had to help with the chores. We even as we got older out of grade school and got on the bus, they definitely knew we had been doing chores. We were country folks. We smelled. So,
did they have names for you, like hayseed or something? Anyway, yeah, you got on the bus and you did more work when you were in high school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, chores kinds of things. And what did you do that connected you with other parts of where you were living besides the farm work? You said that you had hayland across the Black River. So you had to cross the river. That's not done anymore with machinery. And what was that like? That relationship then to a bit away from your farmland?
Well, the hayland across the river was done with the horses. The tractor wouldn't cross the river yet. But see, I guess at that point, this hayland became farmland. Because Andy's farming it now, the state bought it from Alt Peter, who bought our farm, 52 or whatever, something there, 54. But, I was 19? No, 17 when the farm sold. And Uncle Lawrence and Anuela had already moved to town and to Red Lake Falls. And then the farm sold and we went to Crookston, Minnesota. So Mom and Dad, and there was 2 sisters and a brother.
Do you still remember how you felt when the farm was sold?
Well, I guess Dad was the most in shock, but we were going to be farmers. I guess we were learning. We knew how to drive the tractors at that point. We still had a team of horses, but they got very little use. They were just the farm animals. We milked the cows, and you had to clean the barn.
And that was a way of life, and you had to think about something else then afterwards.
I guess about 8 years old, we got electricity, so it goes back a ways, and we dug trenches down 8 feet deep for water from the well. We put a big tank up in the barn, so we'd have flowing water. So
the tank was up in the barn, and the water flowed from the barn to the house?
Yeah. So it wouldn't freeze that way. The hay would be on top of it up in the haymow to keep it from freezing.
And how did you fill the tank that was in the hayloft?
Well, that came from the well. There was electric to put it up there, to pump it up there.
What about some other things like the hunting and you remember when it was grassed, they call it stripping or something, at the hayland that now is farmed in a different way. But there was a time when there was a lot more woods and there was some wetland in the area. And what was your relationship to that? Did your parents trap ever at some time of the year? Did you hunt deer? How was that? How was this very special wooded area of the sections here around Hewitt?
The Black River ran through our land, So there was mink and beaver. The woods had deer, rabbits, and Andy, brought that up. The grouse, the partridge. Yeah, we learned to shoot. We learned to hunt. Our parents trapped. Uncle Lawrence and the neighbor here was Henry Myers, right? Hey,
Trapped a lot of muskrats.
they trapped the beavers on the river. Dad and another miter trapped the muskrats here in the slough that Andy farms around. That was winter project for, I guess you'd call it extra money. But they still had the chores. They still milked all the cows in the wintertime, So, but yeah, we hunted. We enjoyed it like Andy brought up. It was part of our lives.
Did you actually feed some of the family through what you got when you hunted or trapped?
Oh yeah, it meant, well, the wild game you ate meant that maybe another steer or something could be sold for money. That would, here again, it'd get divided between three families.
Did you have pretty big hunting crews at one point?
I think you've seen the picture of maybe over here, the neighbors from where we're at here at Myers. There was like 19 deer hanging off the, what would you call it, the game pole, whatever. And Henry and his dad, they always had that great big pot of venison stew going on the stove. So everybody, homemade bread, and
my gosh,
that would be luncheon.
So you had deer that you shot. You had a pet deer, seems to me, too, on the farm. Can you talk about how you got that and what it meant to you kids?
I guess they were, there was a bounty on crows way back when, and they'd even raid the nests. You could get a couple pennies for the eggs. So Uncle Lawrence was in the woods here again, trying to get bounty money, and he ran across this fawn and he hauled it home. And we had it for 2 years. We raised it 2 years. It was a pet. We had a collie, and the collie would get ornery and start chasing this deer. Well, then the deer would come to the fence, right? Now over the fence he'd go, and the dog was into the fence. So the deer know how to have fun too. So
they sort of played together. Yeah, talk about playing a little bit when you were a kid. As long as the deer could play with the dog, what did you guys do for play?
Well, we eventually got bicycles. We had our wagons. Here again, your family was neighbors, being kids. You had an older sister and a brother, which I knew very well, more than you, because you were way younger. So there was, a mile didn't mean nothing to go visit the neighbor, even on foot or the bicycle. In fact, we'd ride to Red Lake Falls, 8 miles away, to go see a movie, Saturday afternoon. So I don't know. We had trees to climb and little pigs to chase, and life is not the same.
Well, did your mother make a lot of things from either a garden or with the milk, or did she make sausage with the meat?
Well, we made our own butter. We made our own butter. We had a churn, so I always had a big garden. Everybody had a garden. A lot of canning. Well, even we didn't, for the years we didn't have a freezer, so we canned the beef or pork. Well, Grandpa cured bacon and hams and stuff. Had a smokehouse. Grandpa was very good. Everybody had a job. Fresh baked bread and cinnamon rolls all the time, and pies.
Did you pick berries? Did your mother and dad go pick berries any? See, what was there for berries in the woods?